So, good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. It is Jillian. I am in the process of purging my office of all this unnecessary paper, and I did come across some of the old letters and fan mail from way back when, and I'm just trying to figure out whether or not I should keep it or throw it away, or I don't know. I mean, how much can I drag memories behind me before they become cumbersome and a waste of energy to haul that around? And so I was looking through them going like, wow, such the mentality back then. And gosh, and I even threw away a bunch of court stuff because I already have the judgments that were in my favor, and the rest is you can either Google whatever court shit I went through that's available for public knowledge, but I'm burning all this at some point because trying to shred it all would probably burn up the shredder. So yeah, it's the process of right now is just purging out all the old crap that's in my office. So that way, if anything happens and I have to leave, I'm not worried about my private information getting into the wrong hands or who knows what, missing documents, missing this, missing that. So yeah, it's kind of crazy how much we think we have to keep and then how much paper we store for a rainy day. And it's pretty awesome that finally it's been over a month that I have not felt strong enough to just, get motivated to do stuff. And finally, yesterday I was motivated, felt extremely motivated to go and tackle my office. Nothing like a forcing function when you have April 8th looming before you, and there are so many indicators to suggest that maybe it's time to consider other storylines that are out there and find a way to protect yourself. There's no way to know 100% what to prepare for. But in my head, after watching all the information that's out there and trying to figure out a logical way to prepare for something, I have no idea what's going to happen. I figure have at least 3 days of food, water, and gas type of thing for you if you had to leave, and then have at least 2 weeks of food in your house that's non-perishable. But obviously, if there's perishables, that you're going to eat those first. But then figure out what's the alternative source of heat. I mean, you have a fireplace. Do you have other ways to cook over a fire outside? I mean, just think of what it's like to camp. And some of you who are like outdoorsmen and all that will know how to do that. And others will have to figure out how to do it yourself through candles and other things. And some people live in a truck. And so they can use the gas in their truck to generate electricity. And it's nice and contained. As long as you had enough gas, and that gas could last you a few weeks if need be, I guess. I don't know. I've never tested to see if you had a full tank, like in a big, huge truck with a generator, how long that would last. But yesterday I felt extremely, extremely energetic. And I also took down all the stuff off my walls because I finally condensed it into paper that maybe down the road tomorrow, who knows, fast forward to 2030, I might be able to use those notes. But it seems that I have narrowed everything down to a few concepts that I won't need all those notes that I have on the wall. Those were just for me to refer to in case I needed a refresher because it was still so new. And that's how I learn stuff, is that if something is so new, I'll have it right in front of me every single day, and I study and study and study and study until then it makes sense, merged with other thought processes. So that's why I posted that picture of my dry erase board with some of the notes that I had on there. So that way you saw what I was studying and you can draw your own conclusions from what I studied. So yeah, so I feel like I have an increasingly larger lung capacity. I mean, just see, I didn't like the whole breathing exercises that you get from the energy healing world, because you could be just exercising what deficiencies you have. And essentially then, since people are in starvation mode and are doing all the remedies, that they're just going to weaken what they already have instead of expanding their capacity and supporting it, and even opening up new lines, new neural pathways, but new lines of communication, of expansion and contraction. And so when my nose was pouring out all that different mucus stuff a couple weeks ago, and then the last couple weeks, it was then feeling on the right side of my nose, opening up and releasing stuff, and then feeling the pressure in my diaphragm as I'm blowing my nose, and then the sleep, the like dead to the world sleep, was a totally different, symptom that I've ever experienced since the last 7 years. I mean, just watching my body go through these changes reminds me of some of the movies out there. Like, I'm trying to think of that one guy that, I forget the name of the movie, but he was under a military experimentation and was given certain genetics to then adapt to certain conditions. And he was changing in real time and going through the pain, and also expanding his capacity for swimming back and forth in a pool, because eventually they were going to take him to another planet where he would have to go and develop another colony of a different species adaptable to that specific planet. So when you think about the reverse, that this planet is changing, climate change, and you could say the government's doing it and they're at fault for changing the planet. I mean, that's one storyline. You could say that it's cyclical and it happens every so often, and that's another storyline. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. Okay. And so if you reverse what you've seen in the movies and look at this planet changing, regardless if you think the government's doing it or it's cyclical, then are you going to change with the planet? Are you going to resist it? See, that's the thing with the conspiracy world. We were given so much information, and so many were in resistance and developing political action communities, developing activist stances, finding ways to mitigate the symptoms of change, that then that resistance worked against them, and then the inevitable happened, died suddenly, because you can't be in resistance to any kind of changes. You can't be cured in a dynamic environment, because then you would adhere aggressively to the laws of thermodynamics, the laws of entropy, disintegration. But you can't then integrate so much that you then keep taking on so much life that it works against you. And so it's that back and forth of entropy and agentropy, and understanding expansion and contraction, having enough weight on you, and too much overabundance will smother you, not enough will leave you exposed. And then you had to understand the pain and suffering, and all the food and the food supply was necessary. You couldn't afford to be political about food or discriminatory. And then, of course, with all the storylines that are out there and all the distractions, then if you wanted to just stay in a specific thought process and be in resistance to the changes that are going on, then you can get distracted by all the storylines. Okay? And so what I have been advocating is to read all the storylines and find the one that works for you, and then represent your world. Which is why I really don't have an issue with people and their different storylines, because no matter what, your intentions are coming out right now during this climate change, and as well as how you react to April 8th. Like, I see IFL Science warning people, right, that maybe you should stock up on food and fuel and water, stay home and stay safe. And you see people laughing. They're like, oh, we've had all these eclipses before. What makes this day so different? Oh my gosh, what do you know that we don't know? This has been going on for who knows how long, and someone else is saying, something else is going on. Someone's like, oh no, you're just, conspiracy this, and you're just this and that. And they're just mocking people's storylines of what they see. But I know how the government works now, because they're giving you every opportunity to believe whatever you want, and then your actions and belief systems will follow in line. And then, if you choose to believe one storyline, and then you have specific reactions by saying, I'm just going to not listen to warnings and say it's all, people's overreactions, and then you're out there in the middle of the public square, and then you get caught in something. Well, you made that choice. And those are like, oh, I'm going to stay home and stay safe, and I'm going to make sure I have enough food, water, and air or whatever for 3 days and maybe 1 to 2 weeks relative to what's going on, and also pay attention to not just the whole biblical side of the eclipse, but also what may have happened allegedly back in 1800s when there's the New Madrid fault line that potentially caused earthquakes and gases to come up and radiation and darkness and all that stuff. And then listening to the videos about Africa splitting and from all the volcanoes and the tectonics and then the new ocean potentially and causing then, more oxygen and all this other stuff. And so, it's like there's a billion storylines out there, and I would rather be in fear. And that's the thing too, is that there are movies that say, oh, humans have lost the ability to be in fear. They are so fearless that they actually cause extinction to themselves. And so now, I don't know if the storyline that is going on now supported and was a reason to support that we need to keep humans in fear so that way they can save themselves and be accountable for their actions, or this whole climate change was set to happen already because of cyclical changes and whatever else. And then the system decided to then make it also a teachable moment about our society and lifestyles and belief systems and intolerance and pain and stuff. It's just so broad that I could not possibly even think that one storyline is the most correct. I cannot possibly even be that biased to believe that it's all the government, or it's only cyclical, or it is aliens, or it's like mind-boggling. And so what am I going to do with all this information is I'm just going to look at all the indicators, what we've been experiencing. I'm feeling the pain and suffering. I'm eating all the food. I'm understanding why the food is changing. I'm understanding why there's the rule of law and not the law of the jungle. And I understand why there's a new world order. I understand so many things. And there's so much to juggle because of how much I've studied. And I would rather just, listen to the government when they say, if it's time to evacuate, get in your car and go. And make sure you're not feeling so obsessed and so loyal to all of your crap. Because what if you can't bring your 20 dogs that you have in your house to wherever you're going? You don't have enough room. If you have to go to a shelter in place, or not shelter, you have to go to a rendezvous point to get away from harm's way. You think you can take all your farm animals and all of your pets? Yeah, no. You have, sometimes you have to save yourself and your family. If you have 5 kids, you got to bring all those 5 kids. If you have 1 billion pets, you can't possibly be able to look after 5 or 6 or 7 pets. So then people stay back at home, and then they get sacrificed, and the earth swallows them up, and then they're gone. Okay, that's an extreme scenario, but I would rather listen to the government. I'd rather listen to the government than do everything the opposite of them. Because now more than ever is a time to listen to the government. Because they want not only people to trust them, but to also be accountable for your actions and reactions. Okay? So now you're able to see so many different parts of the storylines and characterizations of pain, suffering, and food, medicine, and water, and air, and religion and lifestyle and belief systems. As long as you can back up things with science, you're not making claims and all this other stuff. Now you have the opportunity to start expanding your brain and evolving, and it's done in an incremental process. So I'll tell you, this is bigger than I ever even imagined. So anyway, I'm just like, okay, I'm just trying to figure out how to get this information across. But anyway, so yeah, so we have a billion storylines and a billion characterizations of things, and now you have the opportunity to actually consider another thought process, and also then change the way you react and act to information. And so we're going to watch and see what happens when April 8th comes around. And remember, I was watching a video from that guy from WW3, and he was saying that there might be a biological agent that might be released around those masses, and I'm saying it could be frequencies that cause people's immune systems to then change and release demons, but then there's that delayed effect. And so he was saying, well, it won't happen right away as far as, people feeling sick, but he was saying that it could happen 2, 3, 4, 5 days later. Well, that is right in line with when there's a frequency change and an exposure to people around you that are releasing accelerated particles. Their immune system around them, they're around you, their immune system, they're releasing demons. What are demons? Well, they're particles, and they're activated. And then you breathe it in because you're around people in close quarters. People are going to these viewing events in close quarters, and that environments can be activated with all the different communication towers to support the influx of people, causing then aggressive particle acceleration, and then people's immune systems will be activated to such an extent that could be called disease X, and then you'll see a delayed reaction, and there could be other things that would be going on, power outages. So you're going to see so many things happening potentially, and I couldn't tell you in what order they're going to happen. I mean, but assume the worst. That's why I'm staying home. I'm not going to any eclipse event. I'm not going to be partying anywhere else, because who knows what the hell you might deal with. And so when I have my phone and there's an emergency alert system that says either shelter in place or get in your car if you're in this part of this town and go over here to, a landmark that most people know. And then you go to that landmark in your car with 3 days of food and water and fuel and whatever. And then you come to find out that your whole block was swallowed up, or there was an earthquake that causes gas line explosions. Who knows? I mean, that's the thing about now is the time to listen to your government. That they've given you all the opportunity to understand both sides of the story, and you're going to have to make a choice. Okay? And that's why I'm cleaning up my house and getting rid of anything. And that's the thing, is I have to get rid of so much crap. And I need to burn it, but so that's how I am mentally and physically preparing for something that could happen where it would cause me to leave. Because I'll tell you, there's really nothing in this house that I would have an issue with it disappearing. I mean, you can always start over again. There is nothing I'm that attached to that I would actually risk my life in order to be around it and save it from what? You can't save it from shit. But we'll see. And again, make sure that you can deal with the change of leaving at a moment's notice. And so that's what I'm preparing myself for, and potentially giving you another perspective on what's going on. Not to say that I think you should do what I'm doing, because maybe you can't. Maybe you have a billion cats and a billion dogs and 1,000 kids that you're looking after, and you can't leave. You can't move. And so move meaning you can't just leave. And so, so I just say whatever I say because it's my own way of releasing demons. But So I'm just going to go down my timeline and I'm just going to read this shit because at this point, either you will listen to this information and you'll read it and you'll hear it and then it might resonate and maybe it might prompt you to do a little something different, or you could just be laughing at me and saying you're stupid and you're stupid and you're stupid and that. And okay, fine, that's fine. And so I'm saying you can evolve without developing children to carry on your genetic line and still stay alive. But the process of change is brutal, which is why you have all the different remedies, herbs, religions, and politics to give people absolution. And that's what's going on right now. There is your absolution. You don't have to feel a thing, and you can justify anything you want so long as it's legal and it's FDA approved for the intent. And you can be surrounded by your friends and family and religious belief systems. And so I watched a video about, Africa splitting in half, and scientists have found large cracks on the eastern side of the continent, essentially adding yet another ocean to develop, therefore maybe more oxygen. Consequently, more oxygen added to the environment meant more life and larger animals and humans and plants over time, not right away. But if you're feeling change, if you're feeling cancer, disease, and chronic illness, that's growth. The only time it becomes cancer is when you don't allow that growth to assimilate and you don't release the demons. And so then so what happens with cancer, disease, and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders is you have two opposing forces that are at war with each other, competing for resources. And then at some point, if you don't take control of the situation and manage life in your body correctly, then that growth and those opposing forces will try to take over and actually shut down your immune system. And when you have an immune system shut down, that's died suddenly. Okay? And so right now, during this climate change, growth is happening. People are getting cancers, diseases, chronic illnesses, dying suddenly. They can't handle the growth. And they can't even handle pregnancy. They can't handle childbirth. Kids are not surviving. Oh, but you see everybody having babies right now. They're like, yeah, whatever, have a baby. Okay. System can't stop you from doing that. But is your baby equipped? Is your children equipped? Are you equipped to handle climate change? And so, yes, the ocean is responsible for about 50% of the oxygen produced on the planet, but it's not responsible for 50% of the air we humans breathe. Most of the oxygen produced by the ocean is directly consumed by the microbes and animals that live there. And then those microbes and animals then develop life on land and evolve. Okay? So you have a larger ocean, you have more life to it. More life is then added to the ecosystem, developing more oxygen because you have more plants, more diversity. Okay? It's all a domino effect. Nothing is separated and compartmentalized. Okay? And so while I'm evolving, I feel I am developing the larger lung capacity as my right nostril, right here, has opened up, and who knows what other evolutionary changes I will experience during this climate change. And I am extremely tolerant to pain and suffering, and I eat all food with no qualms around the type of food I ingest, as all food is necessary for nutrition. And so I said, humans are made to adapt if they can handle the pain and suffering, and they stop starving themselves and disabling their immune systems. And so died suddenly means your immune system was ill-equipped to deal with sudden and aggressive change in the environment because it takes pain and suffering and all food to condition one to handle immune system activation. That's what 9/11 was immune system activation. It puts you in a state of fear. Okay? It activated your adrenal glands. It activated your fight or flight. It activated a lot of things. The pandemic activated people's immune system. Frequency change, climate change activated people's immune system. All therapies activate people's immune system based upon the intention. Did you support your immune system correctly? Or are you still taking away food and water and other things? And then are you in fear of change? And so, yeah, immune system activation is going on right now, and people are not surviving it. But all cancer is life. But when it starts competing for your life is when you have to attack it, and people do, and they don't survive down the road. Okay? So cancer is all relative to what is so overabundant that it shuts down another culture. That's what cancer is. They did not know how to manage life in their body. And that's why people die from cancer, disease, and chronic illness. They mismanaged the life in their body. Not only were they in starvation, but they disabled their immune system, and of course were addicted to the remedies and the therapies. And so anyone who has to take a therapy has already said they were intolerant to the environment and they need help from the government to stay alive until the government can't help them anymore. That's called palliative care. Then eventually hospice. The justification for public health therapies were due in part to blood types and lack of antibody protection. So that was the blood type A and B. They were missing the antibodies, and so that's why they had the therapies of monoclonal antibodies to give them some relief, some protection. But they only last so long. It was just a therapy that was temporary, because eventually the climate would change again. They'd have to develop new antibodies. They didn't have enough in their body to produce that, and so they had to get another therapy. And that's why there's endless therapies in biotech, because of deficiencies in people with certain blood types, and all blood types. It's just all relative to what you think something's going to do for you at the time. And so then eventually hospice. The justification for public health therapies were due in part to blood types and lack of antibody protection, because they couldn't handle evolution. You're supposed to evolve and adapt to your environment. That's called uracil. And I've mentioned that about the RNA and the DNA. Uracil was part of the pyrimidian type of synthesization, and then the new evolution. So the RNA eventually became the DNA. It became the actual prototype. And so I understand the addiction to fame, fortune, and social capital. That was intended. Okay, but many humans refuse to evolve and change, and some are so greedy for money. Now, I know it sounds really pejorative that I said that people are greedy for money, but they are. How many people will not change because their whole very life and lifestyle and belief system is predicated on their company, selling them a diet, a juice, a supplement, taking away pain and suffering? How many people are so, their whole lifestyle is predicated upon that if they said, okay, I was wrong, and here's this and here's that they would lose market share, they would have a dry up in their bank account, they couldn't survive. But then why would you call it greedy for money? Because they couldn't find a different way to make money. And so they sold their soul. When you think about it, they will sell their own family down the river so they can still have the social capital and the love and the adoration from their followers, right? And I understand the addiction to fame and fortune, social capital. That was intended. It's hard to resist when you build your life around everyone worshiping you. And so I don't care if people don't like me. So these are this is some of the letters right here that I have from 5 or 6 years ago. Then, oh my gosh, all of this. I have a big bag of all the fan mail, right? And many people are not even my friends anymore. They're gone. Many people that have written to me that you see all right here, they're all gone. Not all of them, but a lot of them are gone. And so fame and fortune, social capital only lasts so long. And eventually you're going to have to evolve. I'm not addicted to this. This is too much to be responsible for. I don't want to be responsible for hundreds and hundreds of people's lives. Are you fucking kidding me? No. But that's the proof that, yes, it's fun for a minute to play with the fame and fortune, but eventually you're going to have to say, is it worth it? And I guess if it is worth it and you're getting money from it and you don't mind being a mercenary for the government, helping with the depopulation agenda, then hey, go for it. But you cannot say you're saving people's lives. You almost have to be very honest with what you're doing, but people don't want to be honest. They think that they're saving people's lives, whatever the hell that means. And of course, they keep it ambiguous because they think that you should die someday, and they're on their way out the door. And so they'll take everyone down with them, and that's okay because that was the intention. That's why they allowed licensed therapists and gurus to proliferate, just like the 1960s. And that was the intention. And so enjoy that fame and fortune and social capital, right? it only lasts so long. Just look at Hollywood. They had a good run. By the way, yesterday was the first time in over a month that I felt energetic, clear-headed, and I didn't have to take a nap. I still feel slight tinges of a stitch underneath my right diaphragm around my rib cage. Now, that's only at around maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night, where I would turn over and it would hurt. My right rib would hurt underneath. And when I blew my nose, I have to do it in a certain way. When I was sneezing yesterday, I sneezed in a weird way because I didn't want to put so much pressure on my rib. It's so crazy. And so anyways, I do feel the pressure blow my nose, but now mucus comes out of both sides of my nose, not just one side, and I can go on this side and blow my nose and feel stuff come out. Before I was over here and I would have like these weird boogers come out on this side. Now I have weird boogers coming out on this side, which is great. Okay? And so maybe I'm waking up. Okay. Which means I'm developing more of a lung capacity and clearing the pipes. Maybe I'm waking up parts of my body that were asleep for many years or never was able to wake up due to genetics. Okay, so, scientists do have specific protocols that they administer to people based upon the intention of the programming, and sometimes they have to keep certain things in the body asleep to wake up other things to then get the resources out of them. That's why you're seeing some of these kids that are like Mensa. They go into get a therapy and it causes them to wake up something else in their brain. So then they part of Mensa. They become so smart. And so the system is going to capitalize on that situation. So there's so many different reasons why people are so aggressively smart and why some of these kids developing faster than others because of genetics and even certain therapies that then put asleep one side of the system to then force the other side of the system to compensate and then cause more of a condensed version of something that they wouldn't really get because it was dispersed. But now one side of their brain is getting more of the information as the one side of the other brain is put to sleep. I mean, that's a very simplistic way of saying things, but that's essentially what's going on. Is when one side of your nostril is put to sleep and disabled, but the other side is open, and it's causing other things, then maybe that's the reason why you have certain personality types. So when you open up both sides of your nose, you use both sides of your brain, and who knows what else you could be tapping into. That's why you want to be in pain and suffering if you can handle it, and wake up parts of your immune system that will give you a better clarity on what's going on and to make the right choices to save yourself, literally, biophysically save yourself. In this environment, people who are asleep will eventually wake up and some won't even survive being awake. To them, it's information overload. They are overcapacity. Well, yeah, when you only have one side of your immune system opened and the other side is asleep and you have all this information that has to be released through both sides, but only one side's open, can you only imagine the traffic? Right? Can you only imagine traffic when like the metering lights? Let's say the toll booths only have, half of them are open, the other half are closed. And so there's so much traffic as everyone is trying to merge into the ones that are open. And until finally someone's like, oh, okay, let's go open up the other toll booths. And now the traffic is so much better and the traffic goes in and out so much easier, not so much of a clogged and overabundance and then causing then all the headaches that happen when you go through toll booths and metering lights. I used to go through that in San Francisco, the Bay Area, and coming from the East Bay, going through the metering lights and being caught in that traffic and then having to pee because I had so much coffee and having to pee and get off at Treasure Island to go pee and then get back on the road again because the metering lights were kept so congested right over there and everyone trying to merge to the toll booth to give our dollar toll. Okay, so in this environment, parts of your body will wake up and some of you will slam your immune system with remedies, drugs, and alcohol to put it back to sleep again until you can't resist anymore and then it's died suddenly. Waking up is brutal and it's painful. So that's why they didn't like the salt 7 years ago. Many people were fucking zombies and they don't want to wake up. Literally, their body does not want to wake up. They want to be rest in peace eventually because remember, they are afraid of pain and suffering and food. Electrolytes are part of your food supply, but people demonize salt, sugar, and gluten and carbohydrates. And you know how deficient most people are. Sugar-free, gluten-free, milk-free, sodium-free, food-free diets. No wonder heart attacks and strokes are the #1 killer of women and men, because you're atrophied. The reason why you have a heart attack or stroke is that you have blockage. The body is attempting to try to push the plaque through the system. Lack of oxygen getting to a certain thing, and the body's trying to survive. That's why then that recommendation for people to cough if they were by themselves during a heart attack situation, and if they wanted to survive, they would have to actually activate their own immune system and cough to open up the passageways. But when you have sodium-free and milk-free and gluten-free and sugar-free and everything-free diets, and you're just kind of just sitting there as a blob of a mess with no absolute movement, and you're constipated, and you have all this blockage and plaque in your immune system, and then the environment changes, causing then an activation and even a replication, yeah, people don't survive heart attacks and strokes. There's nothing to them, and they're on all these food-free diets. No wonder heart attacks and strokes are the #1 killer of women and men. They put their immune system to sleep in starvation mode and then ask licensed therapists to Frankenstein their whole body. And since money's attached to a therapy, the system will never say no to you unless it's physically impossible to treat you for your disease. That's called hospice. That's why I've conditioned myself for pain and suffering. I never want to dig a hole so deep I can't get out of it. So watch that video about Africa splitting apart. And then pay attention to all these people's perceptions of what's going on April 8th. And so, yeah, I mean, find ways to survive. Okay, and I remember in Leave the World Behind, what if nobody is in control? And some people can make that mean that what if the elite are not pulling the strings, they're just defending versus offending? Okay, but then what does it really mean when I think about it? What if you are not in control of yourself? What if somebody else is controlling you? That's what they meant in Leave the World Behind. That's my perception. Is that I've been doing this Facebook Live and going through all the academic science around my lifestyle and belief system and all that. And it's like I can't stop. It's like I'm doing what I've been trained to do. I mean, I've been in the conspiracy world for 12 years, been under heavy academics with my mother for many years, been in resistance and rebellion for many, many years. Finally had to figure out all the storylines. But I read so many books as a kid. I read a lot as a kid, and was even anxious to understand all the different religions out there, searching for the truth, whatever that is. So now I'm sitting here doing what I've been trained to do. I mean, could I go out there and drink alcohol and do drugs and just, I don't want to. Could someone who does alcohol, drugs, and party, could they do what I'm doing? They would have to find a reason. I know what happens if I were to go down that road of drugs, alcohol, and sex, crazy sex, and partying, is that then you have to dig yourself out of that hole again. I'm not doing that. And so someone who is already anesthetized and inebriated and under the influence, do they want to feel pain? No. We're not in control. We are doing what we were trained to do for many years. What our environment has told us to do, what our friends and family has told us to do, what we've told ourselves to do. And so I did try to do the alcohol and drugs, but now I couldn't do it. Now I could not do any alcohol and drugs. I won't, because I know what's going to happen. So there's no possible way I would ever switch back to a prior lifestyle that luckily did not take over. Okay? So what if nobody is in control? They are doing what they were trained to do. All the activists, all the mainstreamers, all the deniers, all the partiers, all the people who are dealing with whatever they're dealing with. What if they're not in control and they're just doing what they're programmed to do? And I can actually understand that, which means that I have a lot more tolerance to differences of opinion, because people have come from really aggressive backgrounds and they're in survival mode and you can't do anything about it. But I still want to represent and point out things for those who are on the fence, who have the ability to see another thought process. Okay? And so someone said that coffee depletes your minerals. I guess if that's the only thing that you're drinking and eating. Okay, so if you're blood type O or even A or whatever, and you're a bigger person, and obviously salt causes probably heart palpitations, and you have to release the demons and all that. But coffee is a good way to also activate your immune system. So yeah, potentially it might do heart palpitations, but it might also make you shit too. Okay? And so you don't want to take away something that was one of the things that activated people's immune systems to keep things going. My husband drinks coffee religiously. Sometimes he can do it 3 times a day. And even in the middle of the day, because he's a bigger dude. He eats all the food in the food supply, but he's type O negative, but he loves his coffee. I love my coffee too. That was what I was surviving on for many, many, many years. That's what gave me the sanity. I tried to quit coffee, but then, doing so much J juice and quitting coffee then cured everything, and then became so skinny and so malnourished. Then I went back to drinking coffee and eating food and releasing demons and so, yeah, that's why you eat all food. Okay? To get all your minerals back that you use from the energy of the coffee and your environment. If you were to look at everything in the food world, somebody will have something nasty to say about every single food out there. That's why I never demonize food. You're supposed to eat all food to replace any minerals used from your lifestyle and belief system, which is why I don't drink liquor or beer or wine or do drugs or diet. So that way I can never blame food for any malnutrition or deficiency. Okay? So someone said that alcohol and coffee depletes minerals. Someone else said that distilled water depletes minerals. Well, that's probably true about distilled water because there's no minerals. You distilled it out of it. But when you have major discrimination against any kind of food and diverse food, and then you have pain and suffering and deficiencies and mineral deficient, yeah, well, you've starved yourself and you're blaming something else for it. But then you could be right, because if you are activating your immune system through your adrenal glands using coffee, and the body is pulling resources to activate, well, yeah, but you're supposed to eat too while you're at it. You're not supposed to just drink coffee and that's it. But people are. They'll activate their immune system and not support it, essentially starve themselves because they don't want to feel the pain and suffering, and then they're blaming the coffee and the therapies and whatever else for whatever it is that they're blaming it on, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why you can't argue with those who are malnourished, okay? Because they don't understand that portion of it. You can read about Kate Middleton and all that stuff. I don't know. Okay. So I'm watching 3 Body Problem, and one of the lines in that movie was talking about how humans have lost their ability to be in fear. They became so fearless that they actually will lay the groundwork for their own extinction. Oh yeah, I would say plenty of times I was so fearless that I'd walk into situations, relationships, and I could have died in them. I seriously could have been trafficked, kidnapped, died. No one would have known because I was somewhere way far away, or I was sleeping in my car on my way to some place in the middle of the U.S., talking to strangers who I know who they are, what they were about. But this is in the 90s, 2000. Well, in the 2000s, early 2000s. But I'd say that I was so fearless that I could have died many times. I suffered probably from walking into situations that I knew nothing about. But that was then another lesson. And so when you are fearless, like completely fearless, that's the end of the human race. You think you're marked safe from whatever the media wants you to fear until you walk into a situation and get destroyed because you were so fearless, you didn't listen to warnings. Okay? So you're marked safe until you walked into a situation and get destroyed because you were so fearless. You didn't listen to warnings. You did not listen to the indicators. So when the government says, probably stay home and stay safe, stock up on food, water, and fuel, and you're like laughing in the face of authority and saying, oh, I'm going to do the opposite of authority. So you're so fearless that you'll go out there, not have food, not have water, not have fuel. You'll hang out with a bunch of people watching this solar eclipse and be like, hey, I'm fearless. I'm not listening to all the conspiracy people. And then something happens. Ah, okay. You thought you were invincible. just like a teenager. Fearless teenagers poke the wrong bear, or their logic is about doing something completely opposite of the government. In other words, they disobeyed their mom and dad. So fearless gets you died suddenly. Fearless gets you walk into a situation you can't get out of. Fearless gets you punishment from the universe. Okay, so those that post those memes of, oh, I'm marked safe from whatever the media wants you to fear, have fun with that. Have fun with that. You actually are being extraordinarily manipulated and you're falling for the manipulation. And I see that in a lot of right-wing people. They're like, oh, I'm marked safe from whatever the media wants me to fear, and the media is the cancer. Yeah, okay, you're part of Tavistock. You are Tavistock. You are doing what Tavistock wants you to do. And so, yeah, yesterday I was just marveling at how much I was purging and knowing what exactly I needed to save. Because I'll tell you, I probably have so many files that don't need half the crap that I have in it, but when you think you need everything, you think you need to save everything, but you're like 5 companies deep in the same account and you don't need half those companies that you have documents for. You're like, geez. It's nice when you can finally figure out what you need to save and what needs to be thrown away. Purging, right? So fitting my whole financial life into a backpack is not actually bad. I can see that why the system wants to simplify, because hoarding so much paper is a crime. It becomes fuel for fire. And so, yeah. So World War III is here. And Yuval Noah Harari told us that World War III happened when Russia invaded Ukraine. Not all wars look the same, okay? There are indicators, but you have to be lucid enough to identify those indicators, okay? Hailstorms, tornadoes, eclipse stuff. It's all civil war, the cancer, disease, and chronic illness, the pandemic, the died suddenly. You're in World War III. You're in it. It's happening. Do you even recognize it? Oh, that's right. People are out there gallivanting. They're having picnics. They're traveling. They're having wine. They're on vacation. And I get it. My husband, he works hard. And he's going to go on vacation. And good for him. And he knows. I mean, I'm kind of that little ear in the back that said, okay, honey, just remember, when you come back, you're coming back right before all this shit's going to hit the fan. It's almost too freaking perfect. So just remember, we are in World War III. Some of you are in complete denial. We are at war. It's like you think it's a party or something, right? And so not all wars look and sound the same. There are indicators, but you have to be lucid enough to identify those indicators. And so then I was like, okay, so I know some people are trying to make so much food and can so much food and stock up and are buying so much food for like years and years and years. They have a bunker, I don't have a bunker, but, and I'm like, okay, do you not realize that there could potentially be an earthquake? There could potentially be fires and floods and storms. And so I'm saying I wouldn't go crazy buying so much food, prepping for something like the eclipse, because you don't know what kind of situation could happen where you'd have to leave that behind or a natural disaster swallows it up. Have at least 3 days of food and fuel to be mobile all the time. So if you're using up the resources that you bought, then you have to buy more, replace them, and buy more for yourself for that time that you are existing. 1 to 2 weeks of food in your house. And you must be strong enough to run or leave if you have to. Okay? Have a go bag ready, a small suitcase, your laptop, and important papers, and your phone and keys. And start throwing shit away, because you're really not going to need superfluous crap. Burn documents that have your private information. Take pictures of important things for insurance purposes. Be prepared for any specific situation. Okay, so survival is not waiting to the last minute and then expecting someone else to save you. And that's the thing about people like, oh, well, my neighbor's prepared. I'll just go to my neighbor's house. No, that's not going to fucking happen. What if they're not there? What if they're like, That's why I told all my neighbors, prepare. Have food, water for at least either 3 days or 1 to 2 weeks. Because you can't expect your neighbors to give up their food and water. You have to have enough for yourself. And then here's the thing. Okay, so then what? People pull resources? And then what? Then you get into Lord of the Flies. Who's taking more resources? And then there's squabbles and fights for survival. Oh, geez. Do you really want to be in that situation? You must prepare to survive. If your life is a lot more complicated than what I've posted, chances are you will sacrifice yourself for your animals and everything else you've become attached to. If you can't drag around your oxygen tank and any other machine that you live on, chances are you're not fit for survival. If you won't leave your house because you're trying to babysit all of your gadgets and toys, you will sacrifice your life for all of your gadgets and toys. Survivors hardly need anything to survive on, and they can leave everything behind if they had to. Okay? Let's say nothing happens. Now you are prepared for something that could happen. And so World War III started in 2022. The system will let you know when it reaches your doorstep. Well, it's pretty much reaching your doorstep right now. Be ready to black out your windows like the World War II. If they say shelter in place, shelter in place. If they say evacuate, then you better evacuate. If your thought process is to do everything opposite of the government, the system will punish you. Know the difference between recommendations and mandatory. At some point, you have to have faith in your government, and you won't know what the right decision is. My husband and I were having that discussion. He's like, if the government says, go over here, I'm going to go the complete opposite. I'm like, Jason, are you freaking kidding me? Do you realize that that could be a trap? That your thought process, do everything opposite of the government, will actually put you in harm's way, and then you will volunteer to depopulate yourself? But if you go with the government, they can then set you up for this and that. Well, at some point, you're going to have faith. At some point. Because that's what the government wants you to have, is have faith in their recommendations. Have faith in their mandates. Okay? Because they're not trying to destroy everyone. They're trying to weed out who are the ones that laugh in the face of authority, who are so fearless they will destroy themselves and other people, who radicalize people against law and order. That's what the system is trying to weed out, are those who are complete denial that they don't have an ounce of power and trying to change and trying to stop the change. And so I'm serious. The system wants a certain kind of people, of course. And so at some point you have to have faith in your government, and you won't know what the right decision is. But remember, the government has always been right about everything. They warned you. That's the Freemason Code. That's the Rosicrucians. They told you what they were doing. You didn't want to believe it. You decided to resist the information. You thought you could stop it. Many people are in denial, even in the conspiracy world, the religious world, the politics world, the science world. The system made recommendations. And then there are things that are mandatory. What was mandatory? A driver's license is mandatory operating a vehicle. Having insurance is mandatory, otherwise known as financial responsibility. Following the laws and rules of the road and your society is mandatory. Everything else was a recommendation. The therapies were a recommendation. If the companies mandated part of their policies and procedures, that was the company's right to mandate whatever, because you work for a company voluntarily. They didn't conscript you into working for a hospital or a doctor or corporate America. You could have left at any point in time, but you decided to stay and then resist their rules. And so everything else was a recommendation, and companies are private with their own protocols and policies. You had to know the difference between public and private. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, you work for the government, they're going to have mandatory things. You work for a private company, they have mandatory things where they say, okay, it's not mandated. And you had to take responsibility for your choices. This is a time for discernment. Like I said, the conspiracy community was given a heads up, but now they must figure out whether or not to cut off their nose to spite their face. And many are cutting off their nose to spite their face. And so someone said, seriously, most Americans probably never face any type of real emergency. except for 9/11. And so this girl has been through this as an immigrant child, and she's had to leave everything behind twice already in my life. So I don't have a problem adapting. She's a refugee. That's another reason why she's so aware and suspicious of the government. And I said, that's a great point as far as your status and what you went through. Refugees had to leave everything behind. Remarkable. Americans are spoiled. So are the Western, I guess, right? Our day is coming, unfortunately. Oh yeah, our day is coming. See, how I was raised was that I was always on my toes, having to be on my toes, walking on eggshells all the time. Nothing was ever too comfortable because you couldn't be. Once you get too comfortable, that's when the axe falls and people don't survive. And so I was raised with always wondering when the axe was going to fall, when something was going to happen, that foreboding fear of something. Okay? Because that's what's going to save you. It's those that get so comfortable and so secure in their lifestyle and belief system that they won't even see danger for what it is because they don't believe danger. They've never had that training to cock their ear and test the wind and hear shit. That young lady who's been a refugee, she's been trained as a refugee. Immigrants have been trained in how to run away from the danger and go someplace that's relatively safe. And so that's why you have the conspiracy community, because we've been exposed to a type of danger, whether it was a contrived scientific type of danger that wasn't really dangerous, but it was a contrived experiment that worked, or it was actual danger. They had to run from a country that was trying to destroy them and their culture. But if you've never been around, if you never had a hardship, you never had danger, everyone kept you all compartmentalized and safe and homogenized. Can you imagine the rude awakening for many people who are just like hearts and flowers, and they're all about everyone protecting them. They can't protect themselves, and they're all love, 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 and can't understand my world, can't understand the conspiracy world because they've been so homogenized and so well insulated from everything. Can you imagine the rude awakening when eventually they will have to feel what we've all been feeling? Oh my God, those who have been feeling this shit can't wait for those who've been asleep to finally wake the fuck up. And some people will not survive it. Some won't. And that's the unfortunate side of waking up. Some people will not survive it because they were never conditioned to deal with pain and suffering and instability in their lifestyle and belief system. And that is fucking amazing. That is strategy of the system. Making sure 1/2 the nation understood that there's some shit going on. You have a chance to survive it if you didn't resist what was going on. But if you resisted, you'd be like the mainstreamers out there resisting the information, resisting another thought process, stay in their homogenized society, just like all the different activists, resisting the changes. And so then they're no different than the mainstreamers who have their head in the sand, drinking up a storm all about love and having everyone else protect them from everything. It's pretty amazing what's going on. And so the conspiracy community was given a gift. Eventually, when you're worn down and you realize you can't resist what's going on, you will respect the system, and maybe you will also survive the Great Reset. It's those that do nothing, won't change, won't prepare, pretend nothing is going on, that only lasts so long. And so I consider myself extremely lucky. I resisted just enough to figure stuff out, then I let go and prepared to let GAWD. Now, why did I say GAWD? Because I'm not like religious. I'm not trying to promote religion and all that. But I'm like, oh my God. All these things are like, oh my God, like my head's on a swivel. Oh my God. And so I let go and prepare to let, oh my God. Because you can't stop it. You can only observe it. And hopefully survive it. And so I said, please watch that video on TikTok from that guy who runs the Holy Ghost culture. Okay. And so I had to download TikTok to find it because someone posted it in their Facebook, and they have it only friends only, and I can't share it, and I can't even download it because she downloaded it to her specific. I don't even know how she did it. She always does that. I'm like, and I don't want her to open up her Facebook because maybe she's want to deal with trolls and all that stuff. So someone posted a Facebook reel, but it's not public. So have fuel tanks full. One may need to evacuate because of an earthquake, New Madrid fault line. The premise of this talks about 1811, 1812, New Madrid fault line, earthquakes, mass casualty event, darkness because of the fissures opening up, releasing gases, so radiation and tar balls or something. And who knows what. I mean, it's really worst case scenario, but I wouldn't put it past it could possibly happen. And so, have go bags ready, food and water. Remember, no one is immune. Assume your area could be under attack by a member or members of the war theater. And so prepare for all types of situations. If the emergency alert system says evacuate, make sure you think it's safe enough. Where is the rendezvous point? Where are you evacuating to? Is the ground opening up? Pay attention to everything. In Oklahoma, you need to be prepared. Okay? I mean, I know Ohio has this, but I'm telling you, the New Madrid fault line is down there, Kentucky, Tennessee, Oklahoma, that whole... You guys, prepare. And so, I posted those Died Suddenly reel with music from DeBarge. Climate change developed all these died suddenly, right? Because of our practices and belief systems. We didn't understand our immune system, and so we took remedies or public health therapies, and it caused an overabundance as well as said food was poison. We did this to ourselves. Our own intolerance to pain and suffering, we did this to ourselves. Starving ourselves, going under the knife constantly, we couldn't handle climate change. When one person suffers, we all suffer. One person dies, all of us lose pieces of ourselves. One person lives, we all live. That was also another quote from the movie Three Body Problem. It's pretty interesting. It's a series on Netflix. And so IFL Science says the U.S. drops out of top 20 happiest countries for the first time. I see Switzerland as one of the happiest countries. I see the Northern European countries as the happiest places because moderate climate, beautiful sidewalks, beautiful architecture, beautiful people, tolerant, beautiful people. And we are in America. We had the time where we had pleasure in paradise and sexual orientation and large families. And, you know, we were very strong in the military. And so now we are paying penance. We had it so good for such a long time. And so now many people of the West, you know, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Europe, and America, North America, even South America, we're going to be dealing with some shit. And it's called pain. We're paying penance for the transgressions we committed against our own immune system. And we're projecting. And that's part of this whole process is Judgment Day, if I were to go to Revelations. And so I repented. Believe me, I repented for contributing to taking away people's pain and suffering. I admitted my own wrongdoing, telling people symptoms were something bad, telling people food was poison, and advocating diets and pain-free lifestyles. I will never tell people they must feel good all the time, because that's advocating drug addiction. So I did repent. If I was to save my own life and explain pain and suffering and symptoms, I had to repent. I'm not saying you should. Your lifestyle belief system will be aligned with exactly where you ultimately want to end up. Pain-free, resting in peace. And so I am representing another storyline to consider. If you're still alive, you still have a choice. The dead have no more choices to make. And so once you get to a point of no return, then it's the pain of regret. And then you might have to be on morphine, but even that won't work. And then people end up succumbing. And so if your intent is to take away pain and suffering, and you're not physically causing someone pain and suffering, you are a mercenary for the system. That is your role. You work for the government. Ironic, there are anti-government people who work for the government they hate. You did your job very well. You set everyone up, but that was necessary. Those who survive climate change will be faced with choices every day, how they deal with their own pain and suffering symptoms. And if they go to you for relief or to feel good, you work for the government, helping people to gain rest and peace as painless as possible. So please don't hold it against me that I see the unintentional intent. You still have a choice, but now you know why I am the way I am. I hold nothing against you, but you do work for the system, the government. I'm on the life side and you contribute to the death side. Obviously, both are necessary. It has taken me 7 years to figure this out. 7 flipping years. Life is about pain and suffering because you have to deal with what you're exposed to. Evolution is constant movement due to exposure to diversity. If you choose to procrastinate feeling pain and suffering and you let things get so bad where you have to get things carved out of you, or you have to push out a huge poop or baby, Mother Nature expects payment, and it is painful. If you never want to feel pain, you always want to feel good, you will pay with your life. That's literally what's going on. People are in pain with their life because they never wanted to deal with pain and suffering, and that was necessary. And of course, on a string of drugs and feel-good remedies, or constantly distracted or under the influence. That's how you know the fall is going to be so extraordinary. How many people are not conditioned to deal with pain? Pain and suffering is necessary, so as long as no one's putting their hands on you or in you, using instruments on you or in you. You had to understand that distinction. You must understand that distinction. Okay? So people are like, oh, well, so someone should be hitting me? No. No one should put their hands on you or in you or use instruments on you or in you. If you have pain and suffering and no one is holding you hostage and no one is around you and no one's in your ear telling you should do this or that because you allowed them to tell you this or that, then you're going to have to figure out how you're going to manage that. And that's your own choice. And so yesterday I did a video. It says, no complete Facebook Live today because I want to show you the state that I was in yesterday. My husband's home, but now you get to ruminate over your choices. And you have no one to blame but yourself for any choices you've made, especially when you've been presented with different information. Will those who keep selling remedies repent? Or will they keep justifying being mercenaries for the system and help the system release the demons via painkillers, via herbs and extracts and supplements, and infusing fear around food? If you want to be fearful of something, be fearful of what's going on. But to be fearful about food, you're signing your own death warrant, ticket, whatever. And so your medicine cabinet, holistic remedy cabinet atrophied your immune system. That is why the diet suddenlies. There's nothing like knowing the truth at the 11th hour. And so when April 8th comes around and you survive a heart attack and stroke and whatever else, this is the time to make a choice, a fork in the road. Because the more you treat your disease yet again, the more you think food is poison, the more you keep buying those supplements and those concoctions from those cute little elderly women who want to sell you a spiritual healing, you are telling the government you don't value your life. Please keep employing mercenaries of the system to make your exit as painless as possible. And the next time you won't survive because you asked them to take away everything you need to survive. And you kept asking them, you kept giving them permission to take away your immune system little by little until you had no more immune system left to protect you. And you're the one that asked for it. And so noisy, sick people who sound like they are coughing up a lung, eating voraciously everything in sight, and releasing demons so violently out of their immune system have a better chance surviving the rapture than those who stay silent, remedy away disease, or under the influence, weighing next to nothing or overabundant. Drugging or starving or liquoring up your symptoms equals died suddenly one day, no conditioning for release. You want to be symptom-free forever? That's called rest in peace. How is that the government's fault? You asked for every single cure and remedy under the sun. You asked for every single diet known to mankind. You wanted to tell everyone that food was poison, essentially starving out yourself and everyone else. And they gave you what you wanted. They let you destroy yourself and the people around you. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. You fancy yourself a warrior woman, but you remedy your disease. I see these women on Facebook. They're like, oh gosh, something about you should be lucid and coherent and this and that. And they're also under the influence of cannabis. They have room to go and be critical of someone who is not lucid, but yet they're under the influence of cannabis. And so you fancy yourself a warrior woman, but you remedy away your disease. That's deceptive. It takes more than yelling at the government and your peers. If you cannot handle your own disease and you can't be noisy about releasing your own demons, and you have to stay silent and symptom-free, selling everyone remedies, you'll energize yourself out of existence because you'll cause your own heart attack and stroke. You're either so overabundant of plaque that your noise about the government and what's going on will cause your own demise. You never understood how to deal with your own energy because you kept listening to all your friends and family. The government never gave you pain. They only allocated you to take it away through FDA-approved protocols. They will never stop you from feeling pain. You always asked the government to take away your pain and suffering. You wanted the cannabis. They gave you cannabis. They gave you what you wanted. Then it turned into hospice and the morgue. You asked them to take away all your symptoms until you had nothing left of your immune system. And then you have the gall to blame them for what you wanted? Be careful what you wish for. And so lack of conditioning to cough, sneeze, and blow your nose and poop equals heart attacks, strokes, aneurysms, and died suddenly. Remember how I've been so adamant to condition myself how to cough, sneeze, and blow my nose and even poop? Well, there is an immunobiological reason why. It keeps things moving. It keeps the blood moving, the waste material moving out of the system, and it keeps all systems functioning properly. Reading and sharing the post about CPR and how to administer life-saving techniques using 2 hands on someone's chest cavity when they also suffered a heart attack also prompted someone else on my Facebook to friends list to post what one should do when alone and potentially experience a heart attack. Number 6 is so important when you are sick. Coughing is what conditions airway, blood vessels, and other tunnels to expand and contract, and I have been feeling my lungs expand in the capacity as the fluids of excess are draining out of my right nostril and cavity, and I feel the pressure, the pull, and the pain when I have to blow my nose. The upside to both my nostrils opening up are not feeling like my nose, head are filling up with mucus when my husband comes around off the road. So instead of feeling like I'm sneezing and coughing, blow my nose, I feel, my nose draining so much, and then also a little bit of a pull underneath as things are doing whatever they're doing. And so, yeah, I told you that last night we were watching a 3-body problem, and boy, was my right diaphragm, chest, ribs hurting. Not like a sharp pain or even extreme pain, but just a dull ache and a pull and a pressure when I had to blow my nose, and it was a productive blow my nose as I felt extremely clear right afterwards. I almost think my lungs are expanding in capacity, and better yet, my ankle has no pain at all after saving that dog from the streets and rolling it temporarily. It was as if I had no injury at all. And so the environment will make you, will either make you if you feed, release, rest, or break you if you starve, hold everything in, and stay so active and refuse to rest. And so my back and arms and everything else feel so strong. I see my body expanding and contracting when the weather becomes so warm and when my immune system throws another log on the fire to burn resources via cell death and reproduction. I have the sweat and the air to cool me off. I cannot complain at all. So number 6 on this is, if you can't help yourself by coughing repeatedly and very strongly, deep breaths before every cough. Coughing should be repeated every second until you arrive at the hospital, until your heart starts to beat normally. But if you don't have access to the hospital because there's no phone lines that you can call and get, then you're going to have to do that continuously and find a way to go to the bathroom and pull out crap if you can. I don't know, man. But people are either going to fight for their survival or they're going to succumb to a heart attack or a stroke. And it's going to be up to them. And so, what else? Okay, all about the eclipse, the upcoming solar eclipse, And then kids right now are dealing with DMDD, which is basically a disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. And there are kids that lack empathy. And there was one article that said this one kid killed all of these little animals at a petting zoo. Another kid killed their mother. I'm telling you, some of these kids are so scary. I've met some kids that are pretty scary, that when they get older and given the opportunity and someone crosses them or they mischaracterize something because of their lack of emotional stability, they will become dangerous. Oh yeah, they'll become dangerous. And that's why I'm like, well, if you can discourage your kids from having kids, given this climate, and of course, all the different drugs and prescription drugs and remedies and things are all over the place, causing deficiencies in emotions and empathy and all that stuff. Dude, we are breeding little serial killers out there. We are. And you have no, I mean, there are indicators. Oh yeah, well, obviously killing little animals, but even the violent speech from children, what they're allowed to say to their parents, what they're allowed to say to their peers. And so imagine when they already have violent speech in their voice and their thought process, and they get older and they get stronger and they get bigger and they act upon those types of emotions. Oh my God. Yeah, we are breeding serial killers. That's why you have to be very careful who it is that you get with, because you don't know their background. And then you have someone like a Ted Bundy, someone like a Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, Richard Ramirez, all these different people who are getting trafficked. Someone like a Dan Schneider that's been exposed for what he was doing. It's something really charismatic. But some of the people are predators. And if you're advocating your kids to have kids, and you're advocating your kids to get married to someone you know nothing about, oh my God, you can only imagine what people are getting with right now. And it's really scary. And you can even see it in the eyes. You can see it in the behaviors. You can even see it in the bullies out there and what they say to other people when they're hiding behind accounts. And so that's why the system is tracking people, because they want to know. It's like pre-crime. They want to know who and what they're dealing with. Is this a credible threat against somebody else? Yeah. It's pretty scary out there. So a high school teacher killed by a 14-year-old daughter. So yeah, when you're reaching 14 and 15 and 16 and these kids have issues with so many things, oh my God. The mother says no, the mother takes away. Mother holds her ground and takes away privileges and all that stuff. And that kid is just seething, and all of a sudden they snap. And so it's almost like it's not even these parents' fault anymore, because they were told to have a kid. They were pressured to do that by their family and friends. Now this kid's out of control. They can't really hold the line because they might get destroyed. You can't win as a parent nowadays because you don't know what the hell you're breeding. And that's a scary, scary thing. Because then when you can't really hold the line, then the kid does whatever they want. So it doesn't matter anyways. And then the parents become friends with the kids because they don't want to be the enemy, because they don't want to end up dead when they're sleeping. So then now this kid's going to do, there's no winning. That's why the system is doing what it's doing, because at some point you're going to breed a child that is fearless, and that will be the one to wreak havoc in that family as well as in society. And people are breeding that in children. Yeah, and that's why I left California, because I ain't dealing with it. There's a lot of people in California that breed children to do whatever the hell they want, and they don't care. Let the kid express itself. Whatever. Okay. Well, they're telling you exactly what's going on and what they're feeling, what they're might do when given the opportunity. And so, even here in Ohio, that's why I don't hardly hang out with anyone. I just don't. Because it is scary out there. It is very scary out there. And so, what you should know about health impacts of cell towers. So you can imagine when there's an influx of people coming through April 8th. April 8th increase in cell towers. To ease the burden of American towns, T-Mobile is deploying additional cell sites that will be on standby in areas expecting high tourist traffic. And in a small Ohio town, which could see over 250,000 visitors, Verizon is setting up a portable tower ahead of the cosmic event. The very real April 8th eclipse is expected to draw masses to the Buckeye State. Rebecca Owens, director of Richland County's Emergency Management Agency, has predicted the Mansfield area, that's where the Mansfield State Prison is, alone could see as many as 250,000 guests the weekend of the eclipse. You can only imagine how many people are going to die from cancer, disease, and chronic illness and die suddenly of heart attacks. And so, just FYI, anything can happen. Anything can happen. That you might even get I'm expecting major tachycardia, which is rapid heartbeat. And so when that happens, I just lay down, close my eyes, eat food, and sleep. And I let my heart do what it needs to do. And we can still run water because the gas line is what heats our water. We just can't cook because we have electric stove. So I can still take a shower and do what I need to do. But wow. And so learn how to do CPR. Don't do mouth to mouth because that's been done with. You don't need to do that anymore. It's the whole doing the chest compressions. That's what is the CPR now. And have an eclipse buddy. Okay? That's the thing. This is why you want to have an eclipse buddy. I don't know how you're going to call for help, but at least someone is there with you, especially if you have a heart attack or a stroke. Make sure you know first aid CPR. Call for emergency help first. Take nitroglycerin. Okay. So there's that. And if the phone lines are down and the internet is dark, you could be the only person who could potentially save someone else's life. So there are people that will probably be alone, and maybe they shouldn't. You don't want to be the reason why someone passes away. You don't want to be the reason why people pass away because they were trying to get to a person wanting to check on them because they didn't take care of themselves. All right, hold on a second. Okay, Civil War is not about just left versus right or black versus white. It is traffic, misunderstandings, competition for food, air, and water, parking spots. It is a synchronized chaos to those who are ill prepared. And this is for everyone. And I would not assume because you're not in the path of the eclipse totality, you won't be affected. All storylines as a pretext to war exists. Assume the worst. I would be staying home and staying safe that week. I wouldn't be flying. I wouldn't be vacationing. And I hope that your home is the safest place to be in. I would stock up on food, water, and fuel, even if you're not in the path of the eclipse. Because at this point, anything can happen. I mean, anything. The system has been telling us for the last 3 weeks, and they will continue to warn us until the point of impact. I don't care if you don't believe in the reasons. They're telling you stay home and stay safe because you don't know what they know and when they knew it. So you almost have to assume everything else is going on. You have to anticipate what they don't tell you. If you can even wrap your mind around what's going on. There are videos that Putin is declaring war on NATO. Allegedly, the water supply is being attacked. Other things and rumors are looming on the horizon. I wouldn't party like it's 1999. But you know how things go. People are just like in denial. When you finally see the proof, I hope you survive it. And so Yuval Noah Harari said, we are in World War III. It started when Russia invaded Ukraine. We are at war. You better act like it. Okay. Oh, I said you had to sign in Google every time you open a new tab window. Well, they were in the middle of the process of revising Google because they're having a new Google whatever. And so it said third-party app. It's kind of weird. And it kept wanting me to keep signing in every tab I opened. And so I'm like, what the hell? But now they've corrected that. So I think it was in that I don't say glitch, but they were probably in the process of updating Google. So now I can go to other tabs and I'm still signed in under my sign in. All right, Eclipse Buddies. My warning on April 8th, make sure you're not alone because if you force people to come check on you, they could get into an accident trying to get to you. And then your lack of preparation becomes their emergency and they died for you or they lost a leg because of you. Make sure you have someone with you just in case something happens to you. Don't be the reason to cause someone else's death because you didn't prepare properly for that day. The phone lines most likely will be down. The internet could go dark. The only thing working could be your emergency alert system that could say shelter in place or evacuate. Make sure you have an Eclipse buddy in your house. Make sure your neighbors know you will be on your own. Some of you will be tempted to go check on people across town. Please deny that temptation. You could put yourself in harm's way. Car crashes, traffic, people going crazy because they know it's the end of the world type of thing. People taking advantage of the situation, kind of like The Purge. Those movies about The Purge, assume there could be chaos and you would not know until you're in it, until you're part of it. Do not be tempted to go out there. This is why everyone must save themselves and prepare. Don't be the reason why someone gets in their car to go and find you. Let everyone know you have somebody in your house during that day, that you are around people that you trust. You could be at work, probably the best place. Do not be alone. Yes, this is worst case scenario because there are indicators that the worst case could happen. Just prepare. And so my husband is my eclipse buddy. And I said to him, honey, do not be tempted to go check on people. Okay? People in his world read my information. They will make a choice. But I do not want him going out there with his truck to go and check on someone. They're gonna have to trust that they can take care of themselves. And you won't know what's gonna happen until everyone goes back online and then communication is going back and forth. Why would the communication go down? Let's just say pretend that it was purposely contrived. Well, when shit happens, they don't want people going like, oh my God, go over here and we'll galvanize here and do this and that and go. No. So if the information is cut off and the only system that's on is the emergency alert system where the government tells you to go here or go there, then you have nobody else telling you where you should go, what you should do, or what's going on. You won't know the official narrative until after everything comes back online again. And that makes sense. So that way you can dispense with all the different swirling, opposing stories, and one person is controlling that situation, which, yeah, you don't want to have chaos like that. There's already going to be chaos in the areas that there going to be chaos in. You don't want to have the whole town be in an uproar if they're not in it. So if you're not out there, you won't be in it, but you won't know what's going on until everything comes back online again. And so don't force your friends and family to go get into their car and go find you. You can put them in harm's way. Okay? So that's all I'm going to say. But this is the time to purge your house, purge the things, figure out your game plan. If you're so inclined, if you think nothing's going to happen and you're going to be like one of those or going to go to an eclipse party in some place around a bunch of people, may the odds ever be in your favor. Ignorance is bliss. That's for damn sure. Bye.